Hello, everyone. Welcome, and thanks for joining us today for the expert panel, Digitizing Commerce with AI. My name is Aatish Nayak. I'm the head of product for Catalog at Scale, and I'm joined today by Saad Ahmed, managing director and regional head of commercial at Grab, and then Rong Yan, chief technology officer at Verishop. Thanks a lot for making the time to be here.
Thanks for having us.
Maybe just to kick things off, I'll hand it over to Saad. Maybe could you describe your platform Grab and then some of the core areas of focus for your company today?
Sure, Aatish. So Grab, just to provide a little bit of introduction, Grab started about 10 years ago. And we started actually as a taxi booking app in Malaysia. And, since then the company has evolved. And, today we're Asia's or Southeast Asia's leading super app. And what that means is that, we've got a few core verticals that our consumers use and come back to use us again and again. And these are mobility, which includes all the transportation options that you could find in Southeast Asia, taxis, ride-hailing, motorcycle taxis, etc., depending on the country. Deliveries, which includes our food delivery business and our grocery delivery business. Financial services, which also includes a digital bank, which we've launched or we're in the process of launching in Singapore, Malaysia, Indonesia. And lastly, we have a vertical called enterprise, which is more kind of B2B focused, which is services for companies. So that gives you kind of like a breadth of what our platform is and how users in Southeast Asia interact with Grab's platform.
Awesome. And I'll hand it over to Rong. Maybe same thing, describe your platform and some of the core areas of focus.
And thank you, Aatish, and thanks for having me. And so Verishop, it's a company that was founded in 2019. So it's only a 3 years old company, but we are growing very quickly. So we are a e-commerce marketplace platforms and a solution providers focused on independent brands. So we provide social shopping capabilities and also marketing solutions to really help those independent brands to grow their business. So far we have about 4,000 brands in our community right now and millions of active users on our platform. So we have been growing from almost 0 3 years ago to these numbers. And in the last 3 years, we have launched a few social shopping features, such as what we call the social shopping feeds and live shoppings. And also shop parties, which is a one-to-one shopping experience for our brands. And last but not the least, it's our core marketplace platforms. So we are still really trying to identify what are the biggest challenges for our independent brands and really help them to grow their business. And so that will be the focus of our business in the next few years.
Awesome. Very impressive growth. And maybe Rong, you can continue for handing out the Saad. How do you think about your role in the context of areas of focus for Verishop? What do you kind of spend your time thinking about?
So yeah, I'm currently the chief technology officer for Verishop, and so basically my focus is really about thinking about the future of our technology, and particularly around how do we build e-commerce platforms and also social shopping solutions for independent brands. So I think that clearly involves a lot of technology that we need to use, and particularly in this context, including artificial intelligence technology and data applications. How can we leverage AIs to really help our brands to become more successful? So there's a few examples here. For example, so one of our job is really helping the brands to be discovered by consumers. So that's why search and recommendations are really becoming a very big piece of the technology that we offer to the brands. And second things, I think metadata management and structured data management are also very important in the marketplace context. So that's why how can we automatically or very smartly extracting metadata for those brands and facilitate the process to improve their sort of a product metadata and also images, what we call image retouching technology. So are also important for our brands. And last but not least, we want to focus more on social shopping. So that's why how do we use data or use AI to facilitate them in a social shopping environment? This also including personalization and recommendations are also another direction we are looking into. So overall, we have been really spending our time to think about how do we use technology And we consider ourselves as a technology company. How do we use technology to really help the independent brands? I think data and AI are a really big part of it.
Yeah, totally. Saad, I'll turn it over to you maybe on the topic of search and recommendations. How do you see that evolving in your role and then at Grab through the use of more AI?
Yeah. So just to kind of give you, overview of what I do at Grab. My role is to work with merchants. So I and my team actually support all the merchants that sit on the Grab platform across our various different business lines. And obviously, that's not the case for our mobility business or our transportation business, because that's a marketplace for riders and drivers. However, if you look at our grocery delivery business or our food delivery business or even our payments business, we work with merchants and merchants spanning across the spectrum from large enterprises like your McDonald's and 7-Elevens, etc., all the way to sort of the warungs in Indonesia, or like a mamak in Malaysia, or like a hawker stall in Singapore. My role is to really think about how to simplify every process that as it relates to bringing these merchants on the platform, making them more successful on the platform, and helping drive the right users to discover them and drive transactions for these merchants. As we think about our platform, right, the focus for us is really thinking about how do we drive our marketplace forward and drive the health of our marketplace, and that really stems from having the right merchant actually appear for the right consumer. And that's really where a lot of the search and personalization teams really work on. This focus is understanding who the users are and who our consumers are on the platform, and really surfacing the right merchant for them, so we can drive higher conversions and make it as seamless for them to add to their cart and check out. The other aspects that we work on is really making it super simple for merchants to finally come on the platform, right? During COVID, we saw our overall merchant base, many merchants actually coming online for the first time. These merchants, if you think of the local markets in the pasars, they had never retailed online, and we had to just lower the barrier to entry and make it really seamless and easy for them to actually sign up for the platform and drive their business forward that way. So yeah, in a nutshell, what we drive is making sure we make it super simple for merchants to come onto the platform. Continue to make sure that we drive the right consumers to their merchant page, and make it really easy for them to check out.
Yeah. One of the things I find super interesting is that despite having two fairly different marketplaces, Verishop and Grab, you both kind of build and have product efforts to build tools for merchants to like better discover buyers and generally drive more purchases. I'm super curious, since Saad mentioned that a lot of merchants they're seeing are first coming online now. Rong, if you've seen any key changes or new needs from your merchants over the last few years or few months?
For sure. So yeah, that actually goes back to the very original idea for Verishops, because we have been seeing two very interesting patterns from both the brand side and the consumer side. First, on the brand side, we are seeing more and more small teams and even individuals. They love to create brands. So this is what we call the brand fragmentations effect. So you can actually see in United States, there is like even individual like Kylie Jenner's have creating a brands that quickly reach to $1 billion valuations. So these are sort of a successful example from there. But we are also seeing a lot of those kind of brands, they are struggling right now. So because once they create their business, the only things they are getting, it's really something like Shopify, that you can use Shopify to create your sort of a web page. But after that, that's about it. So they cannot, especially when they're hitting a stage of growing their business and finding the customers, they're really struggles. So whenever I talk to them, the number one thing they always tell us is that, can you build a solution for us to grow our business, to find us the customers? So that's why like we're making discovery to become a very important sort of a strategy direction for us at this moment. Another thing is that on the other side, consumers, you can see also they are becoming more and more open, buying product from independent brands. So they no longer just say that I have to buy those big marketable brands. Instead, they are consuming information from non-traditional channel, especially in social media, through like friend recommendations or influencer recommendations, they're getting access to new information that they cannot get access before. This actually gives an opportunity for independent brands to become popular among those consumers, as long as their philosophy and values meeting with the requirements of the consumers. And here comes the questions that how do they deliver those informations about the brand stories and the brand philosophy? And here comes down to telling the story about the brands. And that's also part of the reasons that Verishop want to focus more on telling stories and social shopping in these cases, because they actually have a very natural sort of connections between independent brands and the social media strategies. So that probably speaks to the two trends we have been observing, and that's why we are really focusing ourselves on the two things. One is discovery. The other one is about telling stories on social media space.
Yeah, totally. I'm super curious for both of your perspective on kind of this idea of helping brands discover more buyers, particularly independent brands, particularly brands have never been online before. What kind of best practices, key learnings would you like to share with independent brands trying to kind of get online for the first time?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, maybe I can provide some context based on my experience in Southeast Asia. So as I was mentioning, COVID really accelerated digitization in Southeast Asia, and so during 2020 and say part of 2021, we saw amongst the long tail merchants, nearly million small businesses come on the Grab platform. That's a huge number. These are non-chain, non-QSR kind of merchants, and even though we have the largest merchant network in Southeast Asia on our platform today, it's still true that many small merchants are still left behind. If you look at the penetration of food delivery in Southeast Asia, when you compare it to some of the more mature markets, like let's say China or the US, the penetration of food delivery is somewhere in the range of 10 to 12% on average in Southeast Asia. In the US or China, it's upwards of 20%, closer to 25% now, which is food delivery as a percentage of all food service transactions, and these are numbers from Euromonitor surveys, etc. So, so really, what we are trying to do is trying to make food delivery more accessible for small businesses. So we did two things to really drive this adoption of food delivery among small and medium businesses in Southeast Asia. One was to actually we went offline to bring merchants online, right? And so we actually created physical merchant onboarding centers in some cities, especially in like tier 3, tier 4 cities and towns. And so merchants who are not tech savvy, right? You can imagine these merchants haven't been online for the first time. They've never actually tried uploading their documents via their phone before. And we need these, no KYB documentation to actually bring them onto the platform. And so setting up these physical centers actually allowed these merchants to come to a place where with a low friction way, they were able to onboard their information, get online for the first time, learn how to use the app. So this was kind of like a very sort of non-technology way to do it, but it worked really well for us. And then we went in the opposite direction. We also created like self-onboarding tools for merchants. So you didn't have to go anywhere, and you create these self-onboarding tools. And we saw, we did these integrations with government registries, so merchants could just actually input a number, and then we could collect all the information that they needed to upload from government registries. So we went really broad in the strategy of going really sort of to the grassroots to get merchants really comfortable with who are going online for the first time, the ones who needed the help. And then on the other side, to the ones who were more savvy, we actually created these self-onboarding tools and integrated with government registries, so they could just upload the numbers, and we could just get their information and register for them literally within hours. So they could sign up for the Grab platform to be a merchant on the Grab platform instantly. And I think kind of it just really tells a story of Southeast Asia, right? Which is you really need to have like a broad strategy to be able to be successful, because the spectrum of merchants is just so wide.
Yeah, Rong, I'm curious any commonalities, differences, and some of the lessons there.
For sure. So I think actually what Saad just mentioned resonate with me very well. So, I mean, I do find one of the commonality we are seeing here is that both of our platform was dealing with small people. and small and medium brands. You can see what they really want first, like they have a very small teams. So if your tool is becoming too complicated, they're not going to use it. So that's why you have to build a tool or solutions that are very simple to use. But unlike the enterprise customers, they probably don't need to have like the best of the world type of solutions. But your tool has to be straightforward, and they need to understand in the first 10 minutes. If they don't understand it, they're not going to use it afterwards. Second thing is that they're unlikely to change their business process to adjust to your business process. So that's why like the solution you need to build need to be versatile. So you need to provide multiple different strategies, like to incorporate their data into your platforms. So for example, in Verishop, we end up building like 6 different ways to ingest their data. So this is including like Shopify data migrations, like CSV data uploading, EDI strategies and things like that. Those things sounds a little bit like, I would say, maintained to some degree. It's probably less fancier than AI modeling, but on the other hand, that's actually probably what we call about like data-centric AI. So it's really focused on providing different strategies to ingest the data into the platforms so that they can facilitate a lot of downstream processing afterwards. So I do think like small and medium-sized people require this kind of sort of a different way to process the data in order to support their business in that case. So yeah, I think that's probably the 2 points I would love to bring up.
Yeah, it's a good transition to my next question, actually. Going down the lines of like data-centric AI. In e-commerce, catalog data or product metadata is not only like the fuel to power AI systems, but even more basic things like just checkout conversion, on-time fulfillment, reduction in user churn. So both of you touched on this a bit, but in what ways does having clean catalog or product metadata help your business?
Sure. Yeah, I can go first. So on our side, all companies actually use data in some shape or form. The key differentiator is actually how precise and actionable that data can be, right? So I think as we think about our super app, what really sort of sets us apart is that we look at every consumer interaction, right? That our consumers have with our super app, and actually that provides us insights and features on the features that we should be building, right? And to improve the customer experience. And in addition, we're using those insights to help our merchants actually capture new opportunities and how they could be thinking about their growth on the platform. So just to give you an example, right? And this is something that we've been sort of working with Scale on, is looking at how do we capture. So our merchants, as you can imagine, are allowed to upload content. So, for example, this could be menus, or on our Mart platform, this could even be grocery items, and they might list certain items with the same item could be listed differently on different merchants' pages, right? So, for example, it's a can of Coca-Cola 300 milliliter or Coke Zero 300 milliliter. One might call it Coke can 300 ml. One might call it Coca-Cola 300 ml. But underlying that is actually it's the same product, right? And to be able to identify that same product exists across all of these different merchants, and to be able to tie that back and to be able to drive insights from that information and be able to work with the FMCG manufacturer, for instance, is a really powerful tool. And so what that does is it allows us to actually bring the FMCG brand into the picture, be able to create campaigns that all of the merchants who are carrying that product are able to opt into, and basically drive more visibility for merchants who are carrying that product, and build campaigns around this information. So this is just one example, and I included it because it's something that Scale has been helping us with. But these are the kinds of insights that we think could be really helpful in helping merchants understand who their consumers are, what they're buying, and what their interactions are across the entire super app, and how we could use that information to help our merchants grow.
I'd love to add on top of that, and because I also agree with what Saad just said. I mean, clean data is very important, and to some degree, on a very high level, I think about e-commerce. just as that it's actually essentially a data and optimization problem. So you are trying to reduce your cost of acquisition and increase your long-term value coming from the customers. So it's as simple as that. So that's why fundamentally, this is a data problem. So, and in order to solve a data problem like this, getting a clean data, it is core of this business. So you need to make sure like all of your product description page, product listing page are all fully accurate. You need to make sure all of your data report are fully accurate. So our executive can make the right decision in that case. So if you do not do that right, the impact is very obvious. So if you look at our net promoter score, I mean, in fact, our NPS score, it's actually one of the highest in this industry right now. We are above like 70. Like, so compare with, I mean, our competitor, we are actually on the higher end of it. So, but if you look at the sort of a negative score coming off our report, a lot of them are related to data problems. So for example, people would say, you just tell us this is in stock, but why when I check out, it is out of stock? This is actually an inventory data problem. So, and or your website is telling us it will ship in 7 days, but why it takes more than 7 days to ship? So it's a shipping estimation problem. So you can see if we have inaccurate data on our system, this will just simply lead to worse customer experience and then led to, I mean, just lack of a repeat user afterwards. So, and also if you look into details, I mean, there is a static data such as product metadata versus dynamic data such as inventory data. So I think the management of those two types of data are very different. So, and in fact, the impact to the customer experience are also very different. So that's why we employ different strategies to make sure we are getting the clean data out of these two different types. So I'll probably pause a little bit here. So, but I do think clean data, it is at the core of the business. So that's why we have to make it right in order to make it work.
Yeah. That's one of the things I like working in e-commerce is the pain is so obvious. Is the thing accurate on the PDP or not? Or is this the same product as that one or not? Which makes the ROI to improving product data just so much more obvious. Well, kind of following up on those questions, I'm super curious how your businesses are investing in AI powered by clean data or using AI to get cleaner data.
Yeah, so I mean, on our business right now, we are definitely like investing a lot into like what I call the product information management system, in the sense that like because we are dealing with thousands of like small brands right now, and they all coming from different contexts, they all have different taxonomies. So that's why in order to get them into a single marketplace that have a unified schema, then we have to do transformations in order to achieve that. So that's why like right now when we ingest their data from like the 6 different ways from different channels, the first things we would do is to do what we call the category recommendations. So to automatically predict, like for this product, I don't care about what are the previous category do you assign to, like you need to project that into our current categories. Similarly, we also do sort of recommendations on the filter attributes for each of the products at this moment. So it could be if you're selling jazzes, like what's the occasions for you selling? Is it a cocktail jazz or some other places? But you can see different vendors are using different name. So we pretty much need to recalibrate those filter attributes into our context in these cases. So, and that's where like AI can come in to help us to automatically achieve that task. So before we have AIs, we need to hire a team of tens of people in India to manually readjust those tags. So that's actually a very big cost, like for us. Another thing we've been doing is called automatic image retouchings. So basically, like for the merchants who are uploading images to us, so their images are all under different formats and all have different backgrounds and things like that. So we develop a new image retouching programs, algorithms, to automatically change the backgrounds, I mean, to also like change the color tones and make it looks all coherent with each other. So I think that's another application for AI to actually help us to achieve a better data consistency and cleaner data in this context.
So I think the applications of AI on the platform actually run across the spectrum. Maybe I'll start with one which perhaps doesn't necessarily apply to e-commerce, but something interesting is um, as in Southeast Asia, obviously we've had sort of some of the most severe lockdowns and kind of pandemic rules, and a lot of our drivers had to wear masks, right? And so we do this verification for drivers, so we know that the correct driver is actually coming to pick you up as a consumer, and that verification actually involves facial recognition, right? And because drivers or sometimes even passengers, we do facial recognition for passengers as well for driver safety. We you have to take your mask off and put your mask back on again. So our one of the things that we did was actually perform facial recognition in lighting, so low lighting settings where you might be sitting in a car, or if a person has a mask on, and we've been sort of reaching pretty high accuracy with these as well. So that was one of the applications just from a safety perspective for the platform. But more kind of related to the e-commerce side, as a super app, and one of the unique things that we know about our users is what their behavior is across the different sort of verticals on the platform. So if we know that someone's on the Grab Mart app, and they're buying things that you might buy for a kid's birthday party, for example, right? So you might be buying party hats or paper plates or things like that, right? Should we then recommend to that user that, hey, maybe you should buy some McDonald's Happy Meals for your kid's birthday party, right? So just understanding what the user context is allows us to actually recommend things to them at the right time, because we're a super app, right? And I think it can be extended in many different ways. So, for example, when a user opens the app when they're at home on a Sunday evening, there's a prompt right on the home screen which tells them, "Hey, do you want to order from this restaurant where you ordered from last week?" Right? Because people's habits are kind of similar, and they might just because it's the cognitive load is lower, you might just push a button and everything from your basket from last week gets added, and you can just check out right away. Or when you open the same app, the Grab homepage, when you see it on a Monday morning, it recommends you, hey, do you want to book a ride to work, right? Because it knows that every Monday morning you book a ride to work. So just using our the consumers information that we have across the super app, and sort of recommending the right things at the right time, is one of the applications that we see for AI on our side.
Yeah, I'm curious. So both of you mentioned investments in AI you've made. For other like companies or other players in the space kind of investing in AI to help e-commerce, what are some like key lessons learned along the way as you've been applying AI to these core business e-commerce problems?
I think like the first things are probably going back to the point of data-centric AI here. So I think it's actually a new word that was coined recently. So I mean,
Yes.
but in fact, like since I first touched AI probably 20 years ago, so I already started to realize the industrial AI, the difference between industrial AI and academia AI, it is about data. So academia typically putting 80% of the importance on modeling. But when you get into a larger scale data applications in industry, so you have to reverse the equations. You have to put 80% of the focus on data. So I think that's one of the biggest learning when I start my career in Facebook at that time. So when I start from there, I mean, we're already learning that, to build a good AI applications, you have to focus on that. So that's why, first, always understand your data, understand what type of data that you have. And also understand what type of velocity you're getting the data. Like some of the data are high frequency data, high velocity data, and some of them are very static, low velocity data. And you need to using different data infrastructure and different data store to manage that. And in order to apply machine learning algorithm on top of it, you need to understand then what kind of a data store properties that you are using to attach to the right algorithms afterwards. So to some degrees, you are not having a hammer to look for a nail. Instead, you have a nail, which is your data. And then you want to figure out for different use cases that you're applying for. So we already bring out a lot of use cases. And in fact, e-commerce can benefit from many, many different AI use cases, including recommendation, search, structured data extractions, including also securities or even like spam filtering, all those places, but they all require different data to support that. So that's why like really understand your data property, understand use case, and pick the right algorithms to go after it. So that's always the sort of the right sequence for you to do it.
Yeah. One thing you mentioned particularly resonated where um, something we often see is you have the algorithm or the model, and then you have data, and then the model predicts X thing, but then there's this huge chasm to cross to actually integrate it into a product and have it be interactable by users. Saad, I'm super curious from your perspective more on the business side. Um, how have you kind of validated or invalidated uses of AI in the business or product end?
Yeah, so particular for this one, because I've been like thinking about machine learning as a services for a while. So I mean, I'll probably just like chime in on this one. So just more as a users for machine learning sort of services or provider. Um, I think the number one things is really about like whether like that fix the problems that you are aiming to fix. So for example, and is that a ranking problem that you are aiming to fix? Or is that a classification problem? Or is that an image problems? So you need to pick the right solutions behind that. So, and also the second thing is that like, if it's actually a classification problem, do you actually have the right labels, annotations to back behind that? If you don't have it, like how do you create it? So, and does the services that you are choosing provide a capability, or do you need to choose a different services to do that? Just as an example, 2 years ago, when we started to build the shoppable feed products, I ended up have to do a research out of like 5 different vendors in order to figure out what labeling services I need to use at the end. It turns out I spend most of my time researching a labeling services instead of algorithm itself. So I think like that speaks to a lot of requirements for what a ML services actually need to be in order to be fully integrated in an industrial environment. Last but not the least, it's about sort of the data infrastructure they support in order to connect with our services. Because at the end, I think my fundamental belief is like the model performance, if they differ by 1% or 2%, it's not the end of the world. But in order to connect to your internal infrastructure in-house, that's becoming more important. So, I mean, whether the in-house integration is simple enough for us to execute, I think that's also an important thing for us. Yeah.
Cool. Not anything to add there?
Yeah, I mean, I think I totally agree with Rong there. Just to provide a little bit of context into how we think about it. Ultimately, the guiding principle needs to be that how are we managing how are we meeting customer expectations with the information that we have, right? And the reality is that customer expectations do keep changing, and the expectations that they have maybe around physical shopping or the way they interact online versus offline, like how do we build towards the right experience. So just to give you an example, one of the things we're sort of thinking about is now that people are able to step out of their houses and go out, right? How do we get our merchants to sort of bring that experience offline into online? Because customers don't think about which channel, right? Like they're kind of channel agnostic. They're thinking about the need that they have and how they're going to solve that need. And as platforms, we need to be able to, whether that's from a loyalty lens or whether that's from providing the right set of options for them to look at, whatever experience that they have offline, how do we bring that online? I think that's what platforms like us try to do, and use the information that we have on those consumers to show them the right merchants at the right time to drive higher conversion.
Awesome. Thanks for both of your perspectives. You're looking maybe further ahead, like right now, if you've been following AI news and Twitter, there's been this like resurgence in foundational and large language models where AI is basically able to generate really, really amazing imagery and now actually videos, as well as like human-like text. And those have really like captured kind of the imagination of not only just the AI developer community, but also product owners and business owners. I'm super curious, either in the context of your businesses or otherwise, what's on your guys' wish list for what you want to apply AI to, or what you wish AI can help solve.
Interestingly, I actually write AI GC as one of my wish lists right now. So as the next few years. So, and just partly because our business model was dealing with the combination between e-commerce and contents. So that's why, like, how can we generate contents effectively and efficiently? It's becoming a big sort of a pain point for our brands. So if AI GC, I mean, we have been seeing tremendous sort of a development over the last few months, super excited. So if we can develop to a stage that can really become practically usable for small brands, I think this will actually bring us a long way along that directions. So I can already see like there's multiple directions they can go. So first, like for image generations, that can really help to do storytellings for the smaller brands on a social media environment. So, and for image generation also, we can help them to generate product images. So I actually have friends who have a startup who's doing more like converting a model images from one country's model to another country's model. For example, if the product is coming from Eastern Asia, but they want to sell in US, they can actually using sort of the technology to convert that into a more foreign lookings to make it like look more familiar in the corresponding countries in the product images itself. So I think that's definitely applications, what I call content generations. Last but not least, even like the textual generation can be really good for search engine optimizations in that case. So as we know, like Google really just indexed like all the useful informations on like product detail pages and product listing page. So, but how do you generate like healthy, non-repeatable contents? It's actually a big challenge for them. So I think like AIGC, if they can develop to a degree that like the small brand just providing like a set of keywords, they can leverage AI to generate meaningful contents for their brands about their stories. I think this will actually quickly facilitate from a search engine optimization directions. So I can see there is already multiple application we can use if AIGC developed to a level that practically small business can start to use it afterwards.
Yeah, on the Grab side, just from a business perspective, like one of the key applications, something that we have been also working on is actually to build the right sort of mapping technology for Southeast Asia. As you can imagine, when you ride around Southeast Asia, whether it's on a two-wheeler to deliver parcels or food, or whether it's in a car, there are a lot of like these back streets, sois, warongs that people take, and sometimes they ride on the sidewalk, and that becomes a route. And so one of the things that we've been doing is really thinking about sort of how do we build the right set of mapping for Southeast Asia so that it can be much more accurate. And this helps in many ways. It helps us reduce our cost to serve because we're able to find the right route to map the direction to a consumer. And we've been using AI to actually mount cameras on the helmets of our drivers. And then we use AI to sort of blur out the faces and license plates and things like that. And so we can collect the information from these riders. And so this, as you can imagine, has become a way for riders to actually make more money. So, we actually, our drivers actually live and breathe in their communities. So they, this is kind of a unique contribution that they bring to the platform, and we actually pay them for doing this and use AI to kind of blur out some of those images and actually capture that information. So we're able to be much more accurate about, our ETAs, about how long, the routing, what are the best routes to take. And then the other application for this actually becomes indoor maps. So as you can imagine, a lot of our merchants are actually inside malls, and so the rider might park in one location, but then they actually have to go up 3 flights of escalators to actually reach the store. And we're using sort of this technology to really understand what that last mile experience looks like. So as they make their way through a shopping mall, or they make their way through a condo block or the parking lot of a condo, and using this technology to really come up with what is the best way for us to be able to get that package in the hands of the consumer as quickly as possible and in the most low cost way as possible. And as you can imagine, the drivers on our platform who are helping us actually collect this information, it gives them kind of an incremental earning opportunity as well. So that's one of the ways that we think that hopefully this technology evolves and we're able to do this in a much more meaningful way, to be able to get drivers to make more money, but also to be able to serve our consumers better because we can get their food to them faster, we can get it to them cheaper, etc.
Yeah, totally. I really like it's kind of a non-obvious use case that a lot of people would think about. Also, we're coming close on time here. Maybe I'll close out with one final question. Zooming out from just AI in e-commerce, COVID accelerated e-commerce adoption quite a bit. Since the world kind of reopened, we've kind of seen that dip and regularize more. In your positions and in the companies that you sit in, I'm super curious, what are some of your predictions on e-commerce adoption overall over the next 3 to 5 years? Rong, maybe go first.
Sure. So yeah, I think next 5 year, it's going to be explosive growth years for e-commerce. So I think we have that projections even before COVID back in 2019 when we found the company. And of course, COVID is helping that trajectory. So, but we believe even without the pandemics, this trajectory will continue to be the same. So, and that's why how does AI is going to evolve with this trajectory? I think, of course, I cannot read the futures there, but I have some projections of what's going to happen. Basically, first, we are simultaneous with the e-commerce growth here. We're also seeing stricter sort of a privacy control coming from different platforms. I think Apple has been doing that. Google has probably going to do that at some point. So that's why we're going to see a more closed loop data system going forward. So, and that also speaks to the fact that why more and more people are interested in incorporate commerce capability into their own platforms. So because commerce, it is the conversions, and conversion, it is the commerce. So that's why you're going to see more and more this kind of a closed loop platform, including enabling commerce within everyone's everyone's web page, so that they know the conversion data within their own website. Or you're going to expect deeper data integration strategies than just simply because IDFA no longer be useful anymore. So I think we are going to see much deeper integrations for AI system afterwards. So that's one direction. Second direction, I expect AI for unstructured data is going to become more popular, and this is including AIGC, but that could be including other things. So just with the development of computer visions and speech recognition is going to become more and more coming from academia, more into industrial applications going forward. So in the space of e-commerce, since e-commerce, it is a multi-modal data problem. So, and I'm going to see more and more people start to leverage images, even videos, into an e-commerce space. And how do we leverage AI in order to convert those unstructured data into structured data? It will become a very interesting problem to solve. And finally, I think catalog management, it's going to become important. I think including taxonomy management. So because I think data and item are going to exist into multiple marketplace all at the same time. So, but we all know different marketplace, including Amazon, eBay, even Verishop, they all use different taxonomy system. So how can we align those taxonomy system across different vendors and different places? That become a very interesting problem. So these are probably the three things I'd love to bring up. So
awesome. Saad, you want to close it out?
Yeah, I would agree with Rong there. As a marketplace, we see kind of the same things, right? So the taxonomy again, that different merchants use. How can we sort of unify that or make it consistent so that it's an easier and more seamless experience for consumers to drive higher conversion? I think is one of those areas that I think I think it would really help the marketplaces. The other sort of trend that we see is this convergence of online and offline. I think people see this, whether they're choosing to buy and they pay for their coffee online, but picking up in store, or when they're physically in a shopping mall, they pay, buy their coffee online and then they go pick it up, or whether they're home and they order. I think there's this convergence of offline and online that's going to continue to be the case. I'd be curious to see how, as technologists, we can help solve that problem or make that experience more seamless. Because the consumer experience is, whether I'm walking into your store or whether I'm ordering online, you should be able to recognize me. You should be able to understand my preferences, and serve me in the same way. And I think that's going to be one of the trends that we'll see more and more of over the coming years.
Awesome. Well, thanks for both of you taking the time. We have Saad from Grab and Rong from Verishop, and I'm Aatish from Scale. Thanks to the audience for taking the time to chat today, and have a great rest of your week.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks.